Hey, friends, we are fearless. Welcome to the podcast. My name is Frances Young, and we are here on another episode of This Fearless Life. And I have my first returning guest, Kira Sutherland.
I didn't know that.
I know. You're my first
Lovely.
returning guest, Kira. Welcome. And let's have you reintroduce yourself as we're in a new season, and I want everyone to know who you are.
Awesome. That's because we get on so well, right? That's why I'm returning. I am Kira Sutherland. I'm born in the US, so I'm going to have a US accent, but I live in Australia, so it will go in and out. I am a Australian naturopath, nutritionist, herbalist, homeopath, and astrologer. My forte is medical astrology, so using natal charts and transits and all kinds of fun stuff to look at someone's constitution and how to support them.
Amazing. We are almost at a year from when we first met online for the very first time, first recorded an episode. Yep.
Yeah.
And I now have started to dabble in medical astrology myself, as I call myself a studying astrologer, even though I'm the human design expert of my realm in health and fitness. I'm now trying to bridge the gap between both. So I'm excited for us to dive into some questions where I'm going to draw out some of your medical astrology, how you assess a chart, and then weaving our way between human design and astrology today. So, my first question is that when you are doing an initial reading for someone, they've hired you knowing that you do medical astrology, you're a naturopath, they understand that you have all these modalities to help them with something that, is a very obscure health issue, or it's someone trying to get pregnant, as an example. What's the first thing that you look at in their chart / knowing their information prior to meeting them that's like your go-to?
So I do ask for information before the consult. So it's not, I can do a consult straight off of looking at someone's chart and being like, hey, what's up with your health? What I don't do is I don't just look at someone's chart and tell them what their potential problems are going to be, because that's just negative, and then people can buy into that and create issues. It's not like, oh, you're going to have this, this, and this. I can say what systems will be stressed, but what I tend to do, or what's formulated over all the decades of clinical practice, is they fill out a little bit of a form. I want some background health. I want to know what they want to work on, and I want to know what their general problems are, as well as I'll ask things like what drugs they're on, because a lot of people are on pharmaceuticals, what supplements, what they're taking. And also I do ask if they have a really big condition. I do ask if there's timing, if we have dates for when something started or when something got worse. They give me all that info. I pull up the natal chart, and I always look at the natal chart first, which is your birth chart. The first thing I look at is the big three: the sun, the moon, and the ascendant. I want to see the sun is your vitality, your core of who you are. Yes, you can have body problems there, but we express our suns pretty well. I do want to look at that for tendencies. The moon is like your emotions, your habits. It's got to do a lot with digestion. I look at the moon, but especially the ascendant. Like if I had to look at something first, it's a very long answer. I would look at the ascendant or the rising sign, because that is actually in charge of the physical body. So the rising sign in the first house, if people know the chart is split up into 12 houses, I look at the rising sign of the first house because that is the physical body, and it's where we kind of come into contact with the world. And when we're stressed, because nobody's running around stressed these days, we kind of ricochet our energy back to that rising sign, and that's how we defend ourselves.
This plays, and I feel like something in human design that, at least thus far, myself and my understanding of it, how I speak to somebody about their health and their human design, is that the human design doesn't give away what our rising is thus far. Like if I just knew that I'm a generator and Kira happens to be a projector, I wouldn't know that I'm a Cancer rising from looking at my graph. And Kira probably wouldn't know that you're a Pisces rising from looking at your projector chart. And this is the one piece for me that currently I'm like, if we don't know this, it doesn't match up yet. There isn't a way for us to understand this. But the sun and the moon, our Mars and our Venus, at least through how I am now looking at a human design graph, looking at these numbers, where they're placed in the centers, feels very important to understanding someone's health and issues that they may have.
But because you come out with two things like manifesting generator or whatever. So does that feel like the sun and the moon to you, or is that too simplified?
No, it doesn't at all. It actually, depending on the type of human design graph that someone has access to, they'll be able to see their sun number all the time, depending on the type of graph of what they're looking at. And then they're also able to see the human design number that is associated with their moon. And technically,
that there's no ascendant,
right? Technically, when we're looking at human design graphs, there will be kind of two sides. And I put that, if people could watch me do it, I'd be giving air quotes. We have numbers from our graph that are associated with our physical body. And then we have numbers that are associated more with our mental, like daily consciousness. And 100%, I could say that my sun number, I have a Leo sun, and the number and the ideas and the themes that go along with that number, which for me to describe in this moment, I either am all in and saying yes, or I'm all in and saying no. It's a very generator, excitable energy type of vibe. If I just did yes and listened to my body on yes, I probably would always be in my healthiest state of what we could say healthy is. But because I don't know when to say no, or that is my challenge and my opportunity in this life to learn what to say no to, I go through understanding how my health will change around that idea.
It'll be interesting. Can I say you're going to do some medical astrology with me, like some classes? It'll be really interesting to process through when we do look at your chart and your health, where in the HD you can see those health issues and then what it teaches you. Because I reckon there'll be another layer to it, because I know it's that two sides. I've seen it.
Yeah.
But I almost feel like, intuitively, I feel like the ascendant feeds both those sides.
It has to.
It's almost like the energy is going to sit somewhere in that middle and it's going to come out. And maybe it's how many channels are open. I don't know. I'm pulling off of energetic right now, but I know, I think it's going to be about the channels, the lines. You know how, I don't know what those are called because I don't know HD like you do, but you know, when things are open or, you know, things are talking to each other.
Exactly. For me, one thing that I look at that is a basis of health, of understanding what somebody energetically may be holding on to that's causing them disease or health problems, is going to potentially show up in an open or a closed center. We've got these 9 triangles and squares on a human design graph, and whether or not they're open or closed is massive to our health, depending on what that center represents. And something really interesting about the difference in our energy as a whole separately is that I am what they call a sacral being, because I'm a generator. I've got my sacral center defined. And you are a non-sacral being, as an example, for being a projector. When I was re-looking at your chart today, I was super excited to figure out a question of being, when in medical astrology we get deeper. Let's see how this comes together as a question. This is new information for me. After looking at the ascendant in medical astrology, we're trying to figure things out. We look at the 6th house, the 8th house, and the 12th house. So of me looking at yours, your 6th is Leo, your 8th is Libra. There we go. I'm trying to memorize it. And then your 12th is Aquarius. With being a non-sacral, if potentially you'd known that, do you also think that you would have earlier on in life been able to sort out more issues if they've shown up for you with regards to heart health, gut, nervous system, because these are very particular areas for you that you could have
Yeah.
issues if you'd pre-known that you were a non-sacral being, but you know that from medical astrology.
Yeah. Here's the thing. In traditional medical astrology, the
Mhm.
big houses are the first because it's your physical body, the sixth because it's your house of illness. I also think it's your house of preventative health because the
Mhm.
sixth house is the house of work and service to others. But in my opinion, as a modern description, it's service to your own, it's how you take care of your own physicality. It's the last of the personal houses,
Yeah.
right? Once you hit the seventh house, it's more about social houses. Then the eighth is the house of death, inherited stuff, the house of like psychological things, going deep, detoxification. 12th is the house of endings, just for people that don't know this, endings, the chronic house, things that are hidden. It's the house of like hospitals and institutions. So those are the traditional medical houses. But after 30 years this year of practicing as a health practitioner and a medical astrologer, I think all the houses are as important as each other.
Mm.
And I don't always find it's those four houses are super important. I find health ailments can come from anywhere.
Yeah.
Because I'm also going to say, I don't have heart problems.
No.
I have shit hot blood pressure in my 50s. I've never had cardiovascular issues, not once.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of an irregular heartbeat when I was having too much caffeine. That's it. My nervous system, everybody's nervous system is in trouble. Libra, I never had balance. I have had some liver stuff, but in general, no kidney problems, no balance issues, no hormone problems as a female. So I haven't come out with, I mean, hopefully I've got decades more to go, but those haven't been my stressed areas of health, because when we're also talking about those houses, very little amount of planets sits within those houses, right? My planets are spread to other houses where I've manifested more issues to work on. So,
Mm-hmm.
and again, some traditional astrology, there's traditional medical astrology and there's how it's evolved, and I do both.
Yeah.
With that house focus is also super important, not even just the natal chart, but the illness chart. And some medical astrologers, when someone comes to them, the first thing they'll do is they'll create a chart called a decumbiture chart. Decumbiture means to lie down or to take to your bed, like the moment you got sick or admitted you were sick.
Yeah.
And you look at those houses very specifically in what's called a decumbiture or a reading chart.
Yeah.
Which is like looking at the illness itself. Those houses become super important. So there's this crossover between which is important. And for me, I find every planet and every house can manifest health stuff depending on what your soul is trying to process.
Yeah.
Ooh, that was a big explanation.
Love that. Also, thank you for
Yeah.
doing that miniature explanation on all the houses as well. I am so far for now myself having a bit more knowledge of, okay, this is some beginning of medical astrology. These are the places where we start. Already my brain is like, I know someone could have gut issues and not have sixth, eighth, or 12th things going on. There could be planets somewhere else. There
Correct.
could be other things, you know? But it's been interesting so far to know
Yeah.
a little bit more about, say, that, okay, a Sagittarius sun, we really have to watch their nervous system depending on also what their sixth, their eighth, and their 12th is, because maybe they are going to develop sciatica because of just how prevalent their central nervous system health is to the rest of their body, especially their lower body and their
Yeah.
thighs. It's making me think even deeper about the fact that actually a lot more overall, when I look at the human design side of health, generators and manifesting generators, for who I speak to
Yeah.
on my own study, have more gut
Yeah.
issues than, say, a projector does. which
Interesting.
projectors have a more sensitive system. They don't know overall that with their sacral being open, they do not have a system turn off on I am full when they eat. As an example, we're generators, we do have the turn off. Our sacral is colored in. It's like, hey, I'm full, stop, or we get frustrated. It's
Yeah.
interesting
Which is interesting. That's super interesting.
that it's so much more. As you saying, the potential of a planet in any place could bring about something happening. A transit in someone's life activating something to happen as well as the same thing, that someone, if
Yeah.
they're not operating as a generator in the things that make them feel good and love, we know that regardless of how they're operating with all these other things are going to bring about an ailment or illness in some way or make them burn out on purpose. There's so many more facets than just the I see
Yeah.
this person is going to
Yeah.
have this issue as well.
Yeah. Go back to the Sagittarius.
Yeah.
Sagittarius has more of a rulership of the neuromuscular junction. So how the nerves and the muscles have a conversation to each other.
Got it.
The body area ruled by Sagittarius is the bum or the buttocks, but whatever you want to say, your glutes as a PT. So it's the glutes, the hips, and the thighs. So why they get sciatica isn't even a central nervous system issue. It's that the muscles in their bum, which is also where the sciatic nerve starts. The sciatic nerve isn't part of the central nervous system, it's part of the peripheral nervous system, right?
Yeah.
The bum and the gets too tight muscularly because of that body rulership, and it impinges on that sciatic nerve, which then innervates that whole leg. And they have a lot of rulership around locomotion and movement because it's a fire, which fire is all about movement and questing. As a mutable, Sag is one of the mutable signs. It's changeable and it's moving and questing, and that's how it feels good. When things get too rigid, which is the opposite of its natural state, that's where that sciatica comes in. Does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah.
And my most serious body injury in my life happened in my pelvis. And then it also radiated into kind of my left glute, hamstring. I had residual scar tissue that was there. Even though I'm a Cancer rising, Sagittarius rules my sixth. My day-to-day movement, just everything on how I look after myself with my work and my life on a day-to-day basis. I thought it was very interesting when I was going down the initial like learning about just what body parts and things going on with what houses associate with what signs, etc., that I was like, oh, this correlates way more than I ever thought that it was going to. This is kind of crazy.
Oh my God, it correlates. And the truth is, you're going to see that in multiple, just because something presents once in an astrology chart, it can happen, but it's like you need to have patterns. You need to have multiple pressure points for that to happen. So yes, if Sag is on the 6th, yes, we got to look at those Sag body parts. We got to look at the liver health, but we also want to then look at Sagittarius. We always look at the ruling planet. You know this, but I'm going to say it for your listeners. The planet that's in charge of each sign. So Sagittarius is ruled by the planet Jupiter. We also need to go over to Jupiter, look at the state of Jupiter. What sign is that in? How is that also a trigger? What house is it in? How does that manifest? You look at that ruling planet can be also an aggravator, or it can be where I go to support in order to support the 6th.
Interesting.
In my opinion, it's not all about the 6th, right?
Yeah. I know where multiple parts of my chart are for thinking about my 6th, my 8th, and my 12th. We happen to have something similar in that our first house, when looked at through whole sign, we don't have any planets there. But my ascendant is at 13 degrees. I think your ascendant's like 25 degrees Pisces. This is the crazy thing that I can like remember certain numbers when I look at people's charts. So it's interesting that we don't have anything there. We both don't have anything in our 6th, but our 7th and our 8th have like particular kind of singular placements going on. Overall in my life, my health as a whole, I've seen different issues come up at very specific points, but overall has been
Yeah.
quite good. Like I would say I've been a healthy human, even though there are moments where it looks like, yeah, I've had some serious issues. And it's been interesting when I've had certain clients come to me and now I pull up their astrology as well as their human design. And I ask them very specific, plain questions if they're a generator. Are you loving your movement? Because if you're not, there could be
Yeah.
something else that I could look at in your chart, and then two, maybe in your astrology natal chart as well, to navigate how do we just get you feeling excited. If they're a projector, I recently have this new client that's a projector. They have a very rare authority as well, not your ego authority, heart driven, I want the
Yeah.
thing, but they were coming to me saying, I've been super sick lately and some other XYZ things. I actually guessed what their big three was and I got it right. And I was super pumped with myself. I
Wow.
was super pumped.
Very well done.
Then it happened that they were a Gemini rising, Taurus sun. I then asked, like, hey, so have you, when you've been sick, have you had a lot of issues with your throat? Just as a very blanket statement. We know that to also say for listeners that Taurus, at least out of the body, what part of the body it rules is the throat, the thyroid, and other
Tonsils, throat, thyroid, larynx, pharynx, that whole, and a little bit of those upper traps, like the tightness through the top of the shoulders. Yeah. And actually the bottom jaw, because that's what chews food. And the occipital bone of the head is actually, even though Aries gets the whole head, we start to move to Taurus at the occipit.
My brain just went off on thinking about another client who, to like go back in this moment of thinking about open and closed centers to draw in HD as well. I had and have had a patient that has an open throat. They're not Taurus, they're a generator. And when they have issues with their throat, like everything throws them off. When I stretch them as a stretch therapy client and work on their occipital bones, they like chill out, even though their sun sign is not Taurus. When we throw open and closed centers into it and what their energy type is, there's like a whole niche that I am excited to delve into.
To go back to that client, they may or may not have strong Aries, or they might have strong first house because it's the whole head. The pressure point, like for me, I'm very first house Aries. So if you work on my occipit, it's a huge release point because that's the doorway into, even though it's Taurus and I have nothing in Taurus, it's the doorway into my Aries. So if people work on my occipit, I literally like black out in excitement of it's going to fix. I jam everything in my head. And so they're like opening this little door so everything can flow rather than get stuck here. The other thing would be, and they might be like that might be a first house thing. First house is also the head. Or they might have a lot in the second house, but not have everything in Taurus, right? In medical astrology, in regular astrology, which is what I call every other type of astrology, house to sign to planet is not a straight lineup. Like they call that cookie cutter astrology. Aries rulership is not the same as the first house rulership, is not the same as Mars, its ruling planet. In medical astrology, there's huge crossover between a sign, its body part, the house that it naturally, in a traditional like Aries first, Taurus second, in traditional chart, we call it a natural chart. The first house also rules the same body area as Aries. If you stretched a person out, elongated, like scorpioning back on themselves, then you can, the planets really rule something a bit different, but it can also be those body areas. So there is this crossover to look for. Even when you go, there's nothing in Taurus, I'm like, yeah, but what's happening with Venus, what's she doing, and what's happening in that second house? Because if you've got a lot going on in the second house, you're going to pressurize that body part. I'm very house focused on accident. It's not, houses are huge for me, but it's not that I was taught to be house focused as a medical astrologer. I just find so much through my clients, so much of the illness comes from the house area. because those planets are struggling for you to focus on them, but it's manifesting in that physicality of the house area, that the houses have become this enormous focus for me, even though in medical astrology, it doesn't tend to be, besides the traditional houses, it wasn't always a big focus. In fact, I'm like a month away from finishing a book literally on the houses in medical astrology, because it's not, no one has written a lot on that. There's chapters, but not a lot.
Not in the in-depth, then that's your speciality. My brain's like, that's probably where your genius has come out, because that's hadn't been really looked at
Yeah.
maybe before you started to realize this, with all of the types of clients that you have just happened to work with over the course of your career thus far.
When I was studying astrology formally with a teacher, this is for your listeners, this is long pre-internet.
Yeah.
You either had to find a teacher or you had to read books. There was no other way to study. I had an amazing astrology teacher, but I couldn't locate anyone teaching medical astrology near me. I self-taught medical astrology, but I was also studying naturopathy. I'd probably already finished or at the same time. I was coming at it already as in the healing profession rather than a traditional astrologer. I learned to decipher charts is a little bit accidentally my own kind of trying to puzzle it together, rather than I didn't have a traditional, you have to do the decumbiture, you have to look at, I didn't know there was a bunch of rules.
Rules are meant to be broken.
My problem is I probably didn't read those chapters. I kind of put it together in my own organic, with everybody else's info. I did not create anything. I'm not trying to take credit for the creation of anything, but as a ADHD brain that I now understand holds all these tabs open and we're pattern recognizers, I layered all the tabs and the patterns for how I came about it. I'd say 3/4 of what I do fits completely into medical astrology and the way it's taught. I won't say I broke any rules, but I looked at it. I'm also a very big picture person rather than detail.
Yeah.
I think every medical astrologer has their way into a chart that just works for them. It's how boring if we were all the same.
Right. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, I've come in on the back end of learning astrology, and I'm now like, still haven't actually formally taken a full fundamental astrology course. I've dabbled in enough of them, and now I'm just all the way into medical astrology because I've done all these other things, let alone human design is the way that. So I'm like, screw the rule book on how we're going to formulate the way that we want to say this is X way to become an astrologer and add it into this, or medical astrology, etc.
Your little moon in Aries is like, they're going to put it all together, right? They're not going to wait. You don't have that traditional, I've got to wait and put all these pieces together. It's like, I'm going to take everything I know and try to figure out what it's telling me. HD isn't based on astrology, but you can see the roots of the calculations with the energy. Both of them are systems off of the mathematics of the universe. That's the way I look at it, right?
Yep.
It's a different style of math, but they are looking at, we are the same energetics, right? Like,
literally.
I love that. Each medical astrologer really has their forte, and we all get to the same conclusion, but we sometimes take different roads, really.
Yep. I would say that at the end of the day, and how human design comes into then the very specifics that something might not necessarily always be the first thing that you can figure out from someone's natal chart, or the potential of looking at where transits are for them, is that's a different layer, is that a human design graph will tell someone and tells a reader what their preferred digestion may be and preferred environments, referring to those top 4 arrows that are around the ajna and the crown. That are, I remember when I was explaining for yourself, you'd only had one reading prior to speaking to me about your design, that you remembered the only thing that you cared about was the fact that she mentioned that, or whoever your reading was with, that you could eat in front of the TV because you were meant to be stimulated, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, we were at a conference. I was at a conference yesterday, or all weekend. I was at a naturopathic health conference. So these big leaders and shakers in different areas. And they were talking about meeting clients where they needed, not necessarily, you have to do this, you have to do this. Who is the person in front of you? And how we have to do it all as healers. But in traditional naturopathy and traditional Ayurveda is the same. They're like, you need to be present when you eat, sit around the table, smell your food, be aware. We go through all this stuff because your nervous system needs to be relaxed in order for your digestion to work. Because there's this seesaw between fight, flight to digest, relax. It's more complex than that, obviously, but you need them regulated, and you need to turn off the stress to relax, to digest, to absorb your nutrients, create good hydrochloric acid and all that stuff. I know all of that as a health practitioner of more than 30 years. But I find sitting around a table, especially if it's just with the people that you always live with, right? Your partner or your kids or your parents, whoever. If it's a big dinner, like dinner party, that's different, right? Conversation, it's all happening. But on a daily grind, I probably, because I also give so much during the day, whether it's to clients or I lecture at university or lecture online, I'm always giving. So by the time I'm eating at dinner, I want to just shut down. I don't want to talk. I want to be entertained. After I got permission, because I have always sat in front of the TV with great joy and eat a meal. I do have to watch portion control if I do that, but I've always done it and beaten myself up. So it was so divine when that person was like, it's actually better for you to eat in front of the TV or be entertained or read a book or something. I realized after that got said to me, and then after I told you about it, we talked about it, being entertained is what calms my nervous system. So watching something on TV actually regulates my nervous system, right? I'm at the end of the day, I'm going to watch a show that brings me joy. My nervous system comes down. So I actually do digest while I'm watching TV.
Which is super particular to you. How I more look at my own digestion, and as well to like say something along with the 4 transformations, all of your arrows point to the left. So the routine, the active choice of, because a left arrow, to remind everyone, is I am in control of how I am taking action on how I eat, where I eat, and all these other things. Whereas if you have a right arrow for your digestion, it means your system doesn't need as much food. It just checks out. A lot of the time, I will forget to eat now. I don't want food in my system prior to a workout or a long run or a long dance class. My body dislikes it. And I have a digestion style that's called closed, which means very particular foods, very particular times of year. I don't touch mango until it hits summer. But then I'm obsessed.
Yeah.
But all year I need to have bananas. And right now I'm super into salads again because all of the vegetables and produce in Ontario is starting to come out, and it's fantastic. The more that I tap into these weird particulars for me, and also being a generator, I notice that all of these things that I feel like I have shame for on what I'm eating, when I'm eating it, my brain doesn't fixate on any of them anymore, which is a very short period of time of, at least for my experience with food and health in my life, being brought up as a dancer and staring at yourself in a mirror for years of my adulthood and adolescent. I am very
aesthetic sports. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Man, very proud that my body and who I was surrounded in an environment, I have been able to better treat my mental health around how I see myself, even just as a woman. It feels so empowering to be able to say to a client, if I'm able to get their correct birth time, know these cool things about digestion to somebody, and to start to ask them these weird questions like, do you like eating in front of the TV? We were looking at another chart when we spoke last, and I was like, oh my God, if they have the opposite, like of having low sound digestion.
Is that my daughter?
Yeah.
Was it my daughter? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yet she gets great joy sitting in the front of the TV with me, which is interesting. I need to look at that on another level. And my husband is always trying to pull us to the dinner table, and we're like, no, we're done talking.
Yeah. I would love to know what his digestion is. I'm going to like just guess energetically here. Maybe it's like a very singular of knowing the ways that people are stimulated. There are digestion types that just like things to be simple even if they aren't needing to have low sound. They have a very, to say, a caveman diet of that, just give them steak. That's all I want.
So astrologically, he is a sun, moon, in Libra, but it's in the sixth, which is one of the houses of digestion. But for him, he is a verbal processor. His idea of a meal is that give and share so he can tell stories to process it for himself.
Interesting.
He tries to find his balance. A double Libra. Libra is all about the other and sharing and that connection and being heard. And so he has that desire to unload his day around the dinner table. Whereas by the time I hit dinner, I'm done holding space for other people because I spend my day holding space. So for me, shutting down and watching TV is that I only have to hold space for myself.
That's also very projector of you.
That's an Aries Libra.
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Very projector. A projector's energy as a whole loves to hold space. That's kind of how it's designed, because it's taking in all of the energy around it, for one, to give it enough energy for the day with not being a sacral being, depending on how many other energy centers they have going on, but also to just take in the world, because they really are the seers. They really are the projector on the wall of, I want to take it all in. So in order to come down, I need to be destimulized to what is how I regulate. And for you, that is in front of the TV.
I'm going to say, I watch things that I've previously watched. Like it's very ADHD as well. I will rewatch a series multiple times because that's very calming to the nerve. I already know what's going to happen and I get pleasure from it. And it's just easy. I find the older I get, now I'm going to do this as a female, the older I get, the less willing I am to hold space when I don't want to hold space. Like there's something that happens in your 50s, whether it's Chiron return or perimenopause, or whatever. Everyone talks about not giving a fuck anymore. You do give a fuck, but you just focus on when to give a fuck. Other times you're like, I got nothing. I can feel my battery. It's interesting in long-term relationships with my husband, because he is this verbal processor, and there's something about his energetics. I don't know if it was HD that taught me or astrology or somebody else. He does this huge releasing at night of all of his processes. And I've noticed over the years, I'm more sensitive to, if you're doing this big release, I need to back away because I accidentally absorb it. I need to just shut it down. So sometimes you get into bed, you have a nice cuddle, and then I'm like, oh, there's going to be a pillow between you, so you can dump it on that side of the bed. If he's really stressed, he'll process things at night through his brain, whereas I don't think I'd process at night like that. Sometimes I can feel it just happening, so I'll go for a visit to the guest room so I'm not absorbing all of his decompression. He moves too much at night if he's stressed.
One of the more nuances to design when you start going down is the fact that very like original texts and original videos, depending on what archive of stuff you're reading, it basically argues so strongly to the point that no one should sleep next to each other.
It's funny. And you know, in your 20s and you're so romantic and you're like, oh my God, I'm not going to sleep next to I can see astrologically the people who are like, I do not sleep well unless my partner is next to me. That's definitely not me. Yeah. If I had my choice, I would be in my own little cubby hole. You romance and then you sleep. And those are two totally separate things.
Our bodies, regardless of how much you're releasing at the end of the day, and say he's releasing at the end of the day, I have noticed very much through like transitions of being more in touch with my hormones and not being on birth control for an entire year, who and what people I want around me at the end of the day when I'm processing as well. Typically, I've always been a good sleeper if I've had a romantic partner at the time, regardless of what's going on, but only now, later on, as like I begin to step into another realm of my life as well, I'm like, oh, this affects me way more than I ever thought it ever did, even when I know it was before too. It's very interesting.
Yeah, there's something to say about hormones there, right? Like we know, when your hormones are super strong in your 20s and your 30s as a female or assigned female at birth, you have hormones, whether we want to admit this or not. We have hormones that are driving us to procreate. It's survival of the species, right? As much as people be like, I don't want babies, we are these animals with these instincts and high hormones and drives. We have research now that when you're ovulating, you will be attracted to very different types of people than when you're not ovulating, right? We know there's research. We've actually known this for years, but someone just wrote a book on the research of it, and I love it.
Ooh.
She wrote a book. I think it's Professor Sarah Hill, but I could be wrong on that name. It's called something like Your Brain on the Pill or How the Pill Affects Your Brain. It's called something different in different countries. Fucking amazing.
Sweet.
She goes into the research of if you're on the pill or any type of hormonal birth control. We actually know this to be true also if you're on antidepressants like SSRIs, anti-anxiety meds. It inhibits or it changes your natural instinct of who you're attracted to. If we all have barcodes, like at the grocery store, you got a numbered barcode, we are supposed to be attracted to people with certain numbers, but also numbers that are very different than ours. There's this number lineup that we're typically attracted to because it will create the strongest species. It's all about survival of the species when we go down to it, even though we think we're so evolved.
Yeah.
So if you meet a partner or you go out looking for partners while you're on certain medications, you will end up sometimes not. You can end up with somebody with a barcode that isn't normally what you would be barcoded towards. And then you end up in this relationship and then people go off hormones or medications because of whatever, they're trying to have a baby or they just don't want to be on them anymore. And then they're like,
wait, who are you?
Actually attracted to you.
Yeah.
You're not actually my thing, even though we've been together for 10 years. And we know that medications interfere with that natural signaling for good or bad.
And from personal experience, I would say in only a year of understanding what that means for my own health, I'm like, yep, tracks out. As to who I've been with in partners in previous parts of life while on birth control and then not being and seeing the difference as to how these two types of relationship times in my life operate. I'm like, oh my God, this is so different.
Yeah. The one, I was only ever on TMI, but on birth control for a year. But the one partner I met while I was on it is the one I look back at in my history and I go, like, part of me was attracted to that person. No offense to that person. They don't actually know who they are anyway.
Yeah.
It's the one when you look back in your history and you're like, oh, why did I do that? For like half a year, I was like, what was going on in my brain? I'm almost not embarrassed because you learn something from everybody, but I was just like, that is so far removed from my MO. It's
stark and
something
strange
to learn.
Exactly.
To that one. But anyway, now it makes more sense.
Now it all comes full circle. The interesting thing that I think I look forward to the most in beginning to work with you a little more closely and jiving things of HD of, hey, does this make sense to you? Correlating the channels, which, as you said earlier, is correct. We do call them channels when two centers are connected. The full line is a channel. The half line, we just call it a line. There isn't just a name unless you're just talking about the number itself. One thing I was going into, some things I was writing down this morning before our conversation, is that in another literature that I know I'm going to work with for sure, that you definitely probably know the name of, it's called the Gene Keys. The gentleman that wrote the Gene Keys, Richard Rudd, studied with the developer and creator of human design and then branched off and did
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Richard started with Ra-Uhu, and then he broke off and wrote the Gene Keys. And within the Gene Keys, like the full text, it's sitting here on my desk, and I study it like a manual, basically.
I don't have that book. I'm gonna have to get that book.
The cool thing about how it speaks about all 64 I Ching and gifts that are in our human design charts, it also correlates every single one with an amino acid and other, I know, right?
Oh, yeah.
Bombs of information of, oh
Mm-hmm.
my God. As an example, if I know someone's sun gate, I'm also going to look to, hey, do they have enough of, so mine actually, number 29 is correlated to the amino acid valine. Okay, do I have enough BCAAs in my diet right now? Am I getting enough of this particular amino acid?
Protein. Yeah.
These are going
My
to be
amino acid for my son. You have to tell me.
Okay, so yours is 51, and I do definitely remember that. Let's look at it. Let's look at it live right now on recording. Oh, here's 51.
I'm
Oh,
in the middle of mapping a lot of stuff, more to neurotransmitters than amino acids. So,
okay.
story.
A cool thing about something on your human design graph that I just think is so cool because I haven't seen it in any other chart is the fact that you
Aw.
have, of all the 64 gifts that we could have, in particular to the planet placements when we are born, you don't have any in the crown, ajna, or throat. And I've never seen that in
That's
any
right.
other chart, which I think is dope. That's so cool. The amino
Interesting.
acid associated with 51, as 51 is the number of your sun gate, is arginine, if I'm saying that right.
Arginine. Yep.
Yeah, arginine. That's cool.
Interesting. So my question would be, I don't know what he says in that book. Is it that you need more of that amino acid, or because you use it up more? Or are you really good at absorbing that amino acid so you don't need as much?
I think it's going to be the research of figuring out all of those because it does not say what you need more of this or you're not going to have enough. It doesn't say.
Yeah, interesting. Arginine is
It'll
a
be able to figure out.
precursor to testosterone and nitric oxide. Like it's used in sport and for men and muscle building. And it's interesting. I love amino acids, but yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Because some arginine foods irritate me. Some foods that are really high in arginine, maybe I absorb it too easily. I don't know.
Maybe. Or that you already have a surplus in it in your body naturally because you have 51 as an example to say that maybe this is the way. So that if you have too many foods with too much of it, then, you know, they aggravate you. Or maybe it's because you're a projector and you don't, your system is sensitive. So there could be so many ways as to how it could actually come out. But the fact that he actually doesn't mention as to why or how that this is associated with each one, I'm like, okay, this is the next development of this, because how also did you associate all of these amino acids with all of these codes?
There's so much information out there that's put together, whether it's channeled trial and knowledge, it's adding science and layers of the way people's brains works. Like I'm in the middle of, I gave a lecture on this the other day, so I've done it already, but I'm playing with it on a deeper level. I might have told you about this last time we talked. I would have been like peeking on this information. If not, we must have hung up right before I peeked on it. I gave a lecture at a conference recently on planetary cycles. So like the sun is 24 hours. The moon is 28, 29 days. Mars, like how long it takes for a planet to go around a chart. Like Mars is between 2 and 2.25 years to go around a whole chart if we're talking transits. I was lining that up to different things you could do with your health, not just ailments. Because as a naturopath, I'm all about how to take care of yourself, preventative health. The world knows all about lunar health and reproductive cycles and menstrual cycles and hormones. And females assigned female at birth, our hormones do run on a monthly cycle. We know all of that. But then we go, oh, well, males assigned male at birth run off of a 24-hour clock, right? Testosterone has a 24-hour rhythm. But females create testosterone and males create other hormones, what we think of as the female hormones as well. I was like, wait a second. We have the traditional Chinese medicine clock. We have the Ayurvedic clock of time. in the West, and I've done a whole year of Ayurveda in the past just to line it up with medical astrology. Western medical astrology is your Western energetic medicine, right? It just got booted out of regular medicine, which is fine. I played with the science that we now know in the last, especially 50 years, and I overlapped the circadian rhythm physiology that we know scientifically. I overlapped it to the houses.
Oh.
Was I not doing that when we talked last time?
You were starting to, but we didn't like,
Oh,
yeah, I
about
don't
two
think you
days
fully
later,
said it
I
out
did it.
loud. Yeah, okay.
Holy shit. It's
Ooh,
like we know when testosterone is highest. We know when we're creating our most melatonin. We know when cortisol is its highest. We know when your cardiovascular system is going to actually perform best. The Olympics finals in sprinting and things like that is always done mid-afternoon to evening because we have better cardiovascular capacity at that time. The scientists have been smart enough to tell the Olympic people when to run a final to most likely have a world record
fastest.
break. You
Yeah.
don't run finals in the morning.
No.
There's a lot of sport like that people don't actually realize is timed around physiology. I've taken as much science physiology as I can and I've infused it onto the houses.
Amazing.
And now I'm even going into the hormones and infusing them. And then I've gone another step further. I'm starting to look at neurotransmitters. And I'm like, I was peaking while I put it together because in my heart, I knew it was going to match.
Yeah.
But it was such a beautiful match, which is the mathematics of the universe. Of course, it's going to match. It's so beautiful. So I'm in the middle of creating this big table. I'll send it to you. Probably while you're doing my class, you'll get the table. I'm getting my daughter to actually create it as a beautiful graphic.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's so beautiful.
The one cherry on top of many facets of all of the work that you already do. I can only imagine how gratifying that now feels, and then continuing to create it to see what it becomes.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, I can't wait. It's just a way to look at our body and our physiology. I even went into the science of, we now know like when the liver is most active doing certain things, because the liver does like 200 gazillion things, right? Like in Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, we have a specific liver time, and everyone's, oh, if you wake up between 1 and 3, that's liver. 1 and 3 in the morning is liver time. We also know at different times of day, the liver's doing other things. And there's actually science about when to give certain drugs to have the most potent physiological effect. That's all designed off circadian rhythm of organs, or like when you give thyroid medication, when it's most, you give things about 2 hours before an organ is most potent. I've even been backtracking with medications. Oh, I got lost down a rabbit hole.
That amazing
so
rabbit
beautiful.
hole that for me, currently we're recording where I'm on Sunday night and you're on Monday morning, just like charging ahead on the week already, is that the biggest thing that drives a part of my soul crazy that I can't wait for it to literally continually to be shattered is the fact that medical astrology and just understanding our bodies from a more holistic place, naturopathic medicine, Chinese medicine, all of these ways, now including human design as well, that because it has so many of the ancient systems just put together again in a different way, that why did we ever not use these along with all of the modern medicine techniques that we've now developed as humans over the course of us being on the planet? Because these ones still support all of this other research that we now know, that we now understand, that why did these become so stigmatized, so forgotten? We shouldn't blame it on the moon, when actually maybe we should blame it on the moon in an appropriate circumstance because it's fine, because it's supposed to affect us. I just laugh now.
I know. It's a funny thing, medicine and reductionist theory and scientific theory, and we need it. And I don't know, maybe the pendulum had to swing there. And modern medicine will probably never accept this. That's not my fight to fight. For me, it's just playing with the mathematics of the universe and making a difference on individual people. I'm not going to be out there
doing that world fight
to take medical astrology back. That's not my forte.
I feel like maybe that will be my eventual forte, but now I'm like slowly just being chill on the, okay, no, do this part of life and research with it all together and then fight that fight later on.
I get too upset by arguing. Yeah, no. For me, it's no, if you want to use it, let's use it. If you're not into it, that's okay too, but leave me alone.
Yeah.
Just leave me alone. Yeah. There's got to be different stuff for each person, right? What a great world. We're not all focused on the same thing, because that would be very boring and beige.
That would actually make me more sad, I think, and more upset.
I know. I'm just excited that I get to do what I do. And part of it is uncovering hidden history. And part of it is taking our modern science and overlapping what we now know and figuring out how it all aligns.
How they come together.
Now I just want to go work on that wheel today, but I have to see clients.
Maybe you get to do a mixture of both. Yeah. Kira, thank you so much for joining me again. I know we started to unlock some more things with even me just mentoring the amino acids. So I'm super pumped to go down more rabbit holes with you on that, as well as also joining your course that you are about to launch for the beginning of Cancer season and solstice. So only more great things to come. But I really appreciate your time today and coming back on to speak.
Frances.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. Always great to chat to you. Always.
I mean, Aries moon, Aries sun. We have a lot of fun together. I want to thank you for listening to this episode of this Fearless Life podcast. In the show notes below, you're going to find everything you need to know with regards to getting in contact with me, if this has inspired you to book a reading with me to learn your human design, book a personal training session or stretch therapy session. We can also talk about human design during those sessions. However you want to work with me, I'm here. All the information, again, is in the show notes. If this episode has a guest, all of their information is also in the show notes. Now, I never like a podcast that has an intro that's like, these are my ads and this is the thing and this is and now I did that for my first 3 seasons, and now we're putting it at the end because that just feels a little more me. So, the last but not least, hasta la vista of the day is I'm going to see you soon, honey. You're going to go to my website, www.thefearlessprojectltd.com. And if you don't know your human design energy type, there's going to be a graph on that page. You're going to put in some information. It's some birth info, just so you know. And then you're going to have a graph. It's going to come up and you're going to be like, what the hell is this mumbo jumbo if you've never seen it before? Don't worry. You're going to be fine. Literally the only thing that truly matters out of that graph is that you know your energy type and a couple other nuances. But that's it. All the fancy stuff at the end of the day, if you didn't know it, it would be fine. Knowing your energy type, strategy, and authority off of that graph that you pull up is where you're going to begin. I specialize in helping you understand your digestion and environment, and also how to work out, how to stretch, how to be you in this crazy life that we are living currently in 2025. So I'm going to see you later, friends, and just remember that you are fearless.